Welcome to our introduction to evolution. Start with some questions. How could one species turn into another? How is it that we find ourselves surrounded by such complexity, such elegance? Evolution, the greatest show on earth. So a couple of questions, quotes here from David Attenborough and Richard Dawkins. I'll actually probably share those videos with you in class or share some links to those. So we're going to take a brief look in this lesson about evolution. When you are done with this lesson, you should be able to explain the basic concept of evolution. So the diversity of life on Earth today is a result of evolution. Life began at least 3.5 to 4 billion years ago as single-celled organisms like this amoeba here in the top half of our slide. And over time, it's since evolved into complex multicellular organisms like these cells here of a human lung tissue. Quite simply, evolution is the descent with modification. So biological evolution is descent with modification, using the word descent here as in like ancestry, descendants. So this relatively simple definition includes both small-scale evolution, sometimes usually referred to as microevolution, and large-scale or macro-scale evolution. Hopefully you've watched the lessons already on cladograms here and kind of understand the relevance of these different cladograms. I won't get into that now. Refer you back to those if you don't. Transmutation is not evolution. Okay, so this is an example of transmutation, Homo sapien. Kind of a funny version of one that you see floating around showing these simple ape-like creatures into apes and then kind of almost human and humans. This is not what evolution is about. This is not what the definition is implying. It's also more than change over time. Sometimes evolution is referred to as, change in biology over time. So lots of things change over time. Trees lose their leaves. This is true, but it's not evolution. Mountain ranges will change over time. They can be eroded down or uplifted. That's not biological evolution. It's this idea that all life on Earth shares a common ancestor, just as you share a common grandmother with your cousins, which is to say that we're all distant cousins, kind of humans and oak trees, hummingbirds and whales, and that over time those more simple organisms have evolved and changed into more complex organisms. And again, when we look at evolution, we're looking at how they are related and looking at those common ancestors. Evolution is a long-standing idea. It's not some new thing. It's actually gone back as far as the ancient Greeks. But Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace are credited with the more modern concept of evolution, kind of and sometimes called Darwinian evolution, because our understanding has changed a bit since his kind of famous book in 1859 titled On the Origin of Species. But the basic ideas that he had outlined there still hold true. Darwin stated that the theory of evolution by natural selection and also was kind of his understanding of evolution. And he also provided a great deal of evidence about that. I've included here kind of a famous page from his journal showing his concept or notion of this evolution of life. And one of my favorite things too that I like about this, and I think quite a few other people, okay, scientists are very certain about the theory of evolution. Sometimes among the non-scientific community, there's this misconception that there's a debate when there really isn't. But I'll get into some of those misconceptions in a later lesson. We'll kind of continue ahead here. But I still like this idea where he says, I think, because as scientists, we always want to think and question discoveries and challenge the thoughts of others so that we might better understand them and finding evidence to support or not support those theories and change them as new evidence comes to light, is discovered. And again, this is meant as an introduction, but we'll take a look at one mechanism which relates to Darwin's notion, this idea of natural selection. And so there's actually a group of finches, group of birds, depending on the sources, somewhere between 13 and 15 different species, have this huge range and diversity in their beaks, and yet they are all part, basically the same or very similar genus of finches. So let's see here. So in natural selection, kind of talking about just in general what it is. In natural selection, some members of a species, being better adapted or suited to their environment, produce more offspring than others. So they're better at the baby making. So they pass on their advantageous traits to their offspring. Over many generations, this can lead to major changes in the characteristics of the species. And remember that an adaptation is some kind of structure or function, sometimes it's a behavior, that allows an organism, a better ability at surviving and better able to produce offspring in a specific environment. So when a certain type of member is having more babies, they're increasing their genetics in that species gene pool. If you want to know more about the mechanisms of evolution, you can check out some of the other lessons. All right, so that's going to wrap it up for our basic idea, the concept of evolution. So by now we should have a better understanding about what this definition means, descent with modification. As always, if you have questions, please feel free to talk to me or see some of our other resources at CK12 or the website evolution.berkeley.edu.